Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Wow, I actually started on time, not like a minute or 5 minutes late, but actually at the time I said I was going to start. Hello again, everyone in chat. Mark, Callie, Bowser, Babe, thanks for being here. Elizabeth, good to see you. Shan, if you're still here. So, this is gonna be a part 2 of the Q&A that that I started a couple days ago. I know I said it was gonna be a Q&A, but I ended up answering just some common questions that I usually get from a lot of my viewers. Hey, Cecile. Um, but I ended up taking up most of the, actually like all of the stream with just answering those questions in itself. But they're important questions that I feel are necessary to go over, especially since I get that asked all the time. And I just wanted to get those out of the way. So, hey June, hey Amanda. Now, of course, I said this is going to be a Q&A because I want you guys to ask questions if you're confused about anything as far as like my theory goes on the case and about it being orchestrated and whatnot. The kitty's good. He's sleeping in his tower right now. He likes to sleep at this time. Thank you for asking. But I want to start off with I'll give a few minutes for people to get in here, but I want to start this stream off with playing just a couple short videos about that Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 that I talk about all the time. It's very, very important, especially to my theory on the case, because it supports it. Extremely supports it. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. Yeah, he's my world. I love him so much. Animals are just great. I definitely have more respect for animals than I do the majority of humans on this planet, unfortunately, but that's just how I feel, in my opinion. And hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'll try to speak clear into this microphone. But so I want to play just a couple of short videos about that Smith Modernization Act of 2012 that I talk about all the time on my channel. And that's essentially, and it'll go into a little bit more detail about it, but in a nutshell, just to summarize it, the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 made it legal for the mainstream media and the U.S. government to lie and push propaganda onto the public, when beforehand it was only legal to do it on foreign audiences. Now they were doing it prior, even though there was the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 1948, not Modernization Act, but the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948. They were still doing it, and they've been doing it for a very long time. The media has been manipulating stories and lying to the public to sway the opinions of the public and to push agendas. However, now they can just do it with this Modernization Act of 2012. They can do it legally, so they have no repercussion. So even if, like, I was able to wake everybody up, or, you know, thousands of people up, or all these truthers were there to like wake everybody up, and everyone was like, oh my god, so the media is lying to us all the time, the government's lying to us all the time. There's nothing that we can do about it because they can legally do it, again, without any repercussions. So instead of me just telling you guys this all the time, I want to show you those videos to kind of back up what I'm saying. Now, they are like shorter videos that are just gonna kind of clarify what I'm saying for me. Hey Marigold. I like to give you guys, when I can, I like to give you sources, and I don't want to just play one video. I want to give you guys multiple sources. Now, these are shorter videos, so, but there are ones that, I mean, they're shorter videos that kind of just go, like I said, they just summarize it, for the most part. Now, there's more videos out there that are more into depth, more into the detail. They actually read the act or the bill, and obviously, like I said, go into more detail about it and really break it down. But I don't want to play a 40 or over an hour video of the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. That's something where, you know, I can only give you guys the information, what I've learned over the years with a lot of this stuff, like the red flags, the symbolism, other false flags or other psyops or social experiments. And again, it's difficult for me to play other videos or to talk about those other events because they're so frowned upon on this platform. It's just, you're always walking on eggshells when you're talking about even just mentioning school shootings or false flags or anything like that. You're really taking a risk at getting a strike on your channel. And that strike that they will give you is actually under hate speech, of all things, which I don't understand why. All we're doing is, pointing out inconsistencies in these tragic events and red flags that don't, and that make them don't add up. I'm not just, and I think a lot of people are like, they just automatically assume that since like I'm a conspiracy theorist or whatever you want to call me, that I'm just saying that everything is fake, everything in the mainstream media is fake, nothing is real. And I'm really, that's not what I'm doing at all, and that's not what I'm saying. But you need to, not everything that they put out is real. And a lot of it is misinformation. So you have to try and decipher what, and figure out what news stories they're telling you is real, what the government is telling us is real. And of course, it's difficult to vet all that information. And they know that. And they know that a lot of people are just going to turn on their televisions, turn on their CNNs or Fox News, and they're just going to 100% believe it. And why wouldn't they believe it, right? I mean, this is supposed to be the news. That's why people count on the news, because they're busy working jobs, taking care of their family. So all they want to do is turn on the news, the television, and get their news from what they believe is reliable sources. And that's just simply not the case. So again, with my skeptics, I always get that, oh, so you're saying that murder's not real. I'm like, of course I'm not saying that murder's not real. Murder is 100% real, and it happens all the time. I'm simply pointing out inconsistencies in these murder cases, these true crime, quote unquote, murder cases that don't add up. I'm not saying that all of these cases are fake. I'm not saying that they're all orchestrated. I'm simply pointing out the ones and going over the ones and exposing the ones that don't add up. So it's not like I'm saying that they're all fake, like I said, right? It's only the ones that have many red flags and many inconsistencies in them. So I just like to point that out for any of my skeptics again that like to say that I think everything is fake and that murder is not real. That's just absolutely 100% ridiculous. But I love trolls and skeptics like that. It's laughable at times. So now that I've just rambled a little bit about the Smith-Mundt Act and whatnot, I will go ahead and start the first video. Now, I have played these videos before on a previous live stream, but again, I think it's important, and especially if there's any new people in here that are not familiar with this Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, that I play it again. And I will continue to talk about this act because it's very supportive in my theory with these true crime cases that I'm trying to expose. So again, thank you everyone for being here, and I'll go ahead and play the first one. Maybe. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, sorry, I had like 2 Chromes open. All right. Or I'll just rant a little bit more and I'll wait for this video to load. All right, here we go. I swear this time, for real. Okay, so that one there just kind of, like I said, just it tells you pretty much just a summary like I told you. So the next one I'm going to play is just another short one. Like I said, I want to give you guys, and hello Chica, and thank you Amanda for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. Hey Purple. So like I said, I want to just play multiple sources for you guys, and I don't want you guys to just believe what I say. That would defeat the whole purpose of my channel. It's think for yourself, you know, do your own research. So, and don't believe anyone. And the last person I would want you to believe is me. I want you guys to, again, at some point you guys are going to have to look up this information for yourselves in order to vet what I'm saying. But I like I said, I want to give you guys the sources when I possibly can. I have no problem doing that a lot of times to save you guys from having to do the research on your own. But I think it's important to provide these sources because I know that a lot of channels, and especially like truther channels, not even just in the true crime community, what did I just say? In the true crime community, they don't provide a lot of sources for where they're getting their information. And I think that's important. So I'm going to go ahead and start the next video.
James Kaufman, World News Report today. Today is July 7th, 2020. It's about noon central here in the U.S. God bless you and yours, no matter where you are in the world, folks. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell for critical future updates. Today, folks, I'm going to explain to you why and how the U.S. government and media is allowed to use propaganda against the U.S. citizen. Folks, this act was called the Smith-Munn Modernization Act of 2012. This allowed the government and media to use propaganda to convince the U.S. citizens of anything on their agenda. This was included in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013 and was unanimously approved by Congress. The original Smith-Munn Act was actually set in place to allow the government to use propaganda against foreign citizens to convince them of certain facts or falsities through media and through information. Now, this has been turned against the U.S. citizen in 2012 and 2013 through the Smith-Munn Modernization Act and the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013. Yes, folks, the Congress that you see here, that you elected and you pay the salaries of, voted to unanimously agree to use propaganda against U.S. citizens to convince them of anything that they propagate important or their agendas. This was signed into law by who? No other than President Barack Obama, better known as Barry Sorrento, folks. I want you to know that the people you're sending to represent you in Congress do not have your best interests in mind, or they would not have unanimously voted for this propaganda to be used against the U.S. citizen. This is being used by U.S. government associations and organizations and media. Folks, I wanted to bring this to your attention and think that you need to share this video and please subscribe.
Oh, and I will put all of the links in the description after the live stream. I meant to do that prior, and I got a little distracted. I do have one more video, but I wanted to just comment on those first two. Now, in the first one, it says that you know, they do this literally, and one of the main agendas behind this, and I get that question all the time as well, that I went over in part one of this two-part question and answer. Whoa, what did my chat just do on the screen? That was really weird. Okay. They like all came in at once. That was kind of crazy. Buddy says hello, as always. Now they can, again, legally lie to us and make up any of these news stories that they want. It doesn't matter and they can do it in television. They can do it, in movies, any of that, like predictive programming, and propaganda stuff. Like they were doing propaganda back in the vintage days, or not the vintage days, and like, you know, World War II days, that I see all the time on those vintage films. They've been continuously pushing propaganda. And that's why that 1948 bill was passed to prevent propaganda from being used on U.S. citizens and only foreign audiences. Now, again, like this guy just mentioned in his video, Barack Obama was the one that passed through this Smith Modernization Act of 2012, making it legal for the U.S. government and for the mainstream media to legally lie to us. And I don't want to keep like pressing that word, legally lie to us. Even though they were doing it prior, I mean, they can do whatever they want. But now, like I said before, they can do it with no repercussions. And not only are they like making up these news stories, they're fabricating to sway opinions of the public, and to push laws, to take away rights, like with these school shootings. But it can't be traced back to them, and it also is being funded. And guess who's paying for these events where they're being fabricated and we're being duped? The public. The public is paying for it. So all these like FBI agents that are out looking for Brian Laundrie and for Gabby Petito, guess who's funding that? We are, the taxpayers. Okay, which should infuriate like you even more, at the fact that we're being duped and we're actually like paying to be duped as well. Okay, apple of his eye. All right, so the last video I have, again, it's just a short one, but I think it's important that I show you that, you know, I'm not the only one that's talking about this Smith-Mundt Act, and that I'm not just like making stuff up. And this next video that I'm going to play, I did play it before on one of my previous live streams a few months ago. This is Naomi Wolf. She is a author and a journalist. She's at a conference, and just to like, it kind of comes in the middle of it, so it's like clipped out. But there's going to be someone in the audience that asks her about the Boston bombing. And if you are not familiar with like false flags and psyops, the Boston bombing is another one of those huge events, tragic events that a lot of people and truthers have pointed out many, many inconsistencies and many red flags in it. And it is a well-known to be a false flag event, orchestrated to, again, push multiple agendas onto the public. And it's one of those topics where you're just not allowed to talk about, or you're walking on eggshells if you do. And it's very, you know, anytime you're talking about these events that are tragic, people are going to get very, very upset, especially when they believe in their hearts that innocent people have died, especially when it comes down to like women and children. So just not only do you have that factor to deal with when you're trying to expose cases or events like this, but you also have the fact that these platforms are not allowing you to speak about that and go against the official narrative either. So there's a lot of factors that take place that make it difficult for someone like myself and any other truthers or any just normal person that feels like they should be allowed to have an opinion on these cases, and they're just always shunned or turned away or called a crazy person. So there's a lot of factors, like I said, that definitely do not help what we're trying to do.
What do you think of what happened in Boston? When we were looking for a pressure cooker and two teenagers, you know, and then they took over the whole city and shut it down. And to me, that looked a whole lot like martial law.
Yeah. Oh, God, I can't believe. See, this is why I didn't want to give this talk, because I knew that we'd have this conversation. And now it's on the record. All right. Let me take a step back. And we have to deal with it. Let me take a step back and a deep breath, because this is a very painful thing to talk about. So all over the world, we know, it's well established, the State Department and intelligence agencies engage in theater, and it's what they do, it's spycraft, to create spectacles and events that people may not realize are spectacles and events, but that, well, like the overthrow of Mossadegh in the 50s in Iran. They'll funnel money to protesters. They'll, fly people in to infiltrate protesters. They'll create fake newspapers and so on. So we know that this happens in countries around the world. I believe that a law has been passed in the United States. I think it's part of the Defense Authorization Act. I need to confirm this. That, pardon me, now makes it legal to propagandize American citizens. Do we know about that? Yeah, it's true. And is it in the NDAA or is it in something else? Do we know? It's a separate bill. It's a separate bill. And it's been passed. It's now law? Do we know what the name? 2 years ago. Do we know what the name of it is?
I don't remember, but I reported on it.
Oh, thank you. Will you send me the link?
Yeah.
Thank you. So what this means is, and I, as a journalist to say these words, I can't tell you with what a heavy heart I say them, but we've entered an era in which it is not crazy to assess news events to see if they're real or not real. And in the United States as well as overseas. And in fact, it's kind of crazy not to.
So I just want to pause it there. That's true. Why would anybody believe just everything that they're told coming from the mainstream media or from your government? It really doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you question a lot of things, and especially when they don't add up? So she makes a good point. Doesn't matter, anything that you're told, you should take it with a grain of salt and not necessarily believe that everything you're told is true, especially if anybody knows about corruption. It's everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go, there's going to be corruption. And it's just you, Mark, because I had my headphones in and I could hear it. So try refreshing. And if you can't hear me right now, then I don't think that's going to help. So hopefully you get it fixed. But no, she makes a good point that you should question anything, and especially news sources.
Now, there's so much hype about what I just said, and so I want to be very clear about it so it can't be taken out of context. There's, pardon me, this kind of reflexive vilification of anyone speculating about that because they become a conspiracy theorist, right? Well, just bear with me. I've often thought about this because our intelligence agencies, and I respect spies. Who are doing, before it got out of control, I believe we need intelligence. I believe we need intelligence agencies. I don't think there's anything dishonorable about being in the intelligence services if you obey the Constitution and the law. But all over the world, our intelligence services are engaged in conspiring to create outcomes. That's their job. That's how they're successful. So now that it's illegal to propagandize in the United States, it doesn't surprise me that there's more and more products coming up in popular culture, more and more events in the news stream that seem to be, to my eye, to be subsidized. Let me give you some examples of that. I'm not talking about Boston right now. I'll get to that. We also talked earlier about infiltrators, right? And how they provoke violence. This is well established. So if we know that infiltrators by the police, NYPD, they've been documented, or other police forces, dress up like people they're not and provoke violence, why is it unthinkable that there might be spectacles that might drive an outcome in the news stream? Let me give you a couple of quick examples. And all I'm saying is we unfortunately, and I have
Okay, so hopefully there's no buffering. I'm getting an error on my stream, whatever. Hey, broken dishes. So I want to pause it there because if you notice, she's kind of she's being careful about how she's kind of exposing this. I don't know if you guys noticed that. She's just being very careful with her words, but I think that you can pretty much understand for the most part what she's getting at. And and I might actually just play this again because it's super important what she's saying and it's short enough. So I definitely don't want you guys to miss anything.
I have to say this to my fellow journalists as well. We've entered a time in which we need to be very skeptical about the news stream and look at it critically and ask for more verification and more inquiry. And that's just being good reporters. And it makes it like this. There's spectacle fed into the news media in China. There's spectacle fed into, like, Chile. How did Pinochet, engage in his coup? He created photographs of a cache of weapons.
And that's a good point too. She being a journalist, do you think that journalists just go and they just don't do any research on their news stories? I mean, the one that's are actually like real, right? That they're not fabricating, and they're just going to go, oh, okay. And they're just going to go to like one source and go, oh, they must be telling the truth, and then just roll with it. No, that would be terrible, like, journalism. You're going to want to go and get multiple sources, and you're going to want to vet the information. So what makes it any different from you being a citizen and listening to the news, right? Hey, Swamp Lover. What's the difference between that and journalism? And again, I know that it's kind of hard for people to like grasp, like, well, why would they lie to us? Well, I'm telling you why, right? They do it to, people are shitty. Companies are shitty. There's so many corrupt companies out there. So what makes you think that like news sources and individual people, even people on YouTube streamers, they have motives, right? Maybe they're good motives. Maybe they stream because they need to support themselves and make money. Maybe they're streamers in the true crime community who are pushing a Chris Watts case at 3.5 years later, going over the same stuff over and over again because they know that it brings in money and it brings in views. So that's their motive. So anybody, a lot of times someone's going to have a motive, whether it's good or bad. So it just boggles my mind that so many people would just turn on their TVs and just 100% believe everything that they're being told without trying to get another source of the information, get a second opinion, watch independent videos or something. And I know, again, a lot of people don't have time to do that. A lot of people are just worried about supporting their families and putting food on the table. But, if you don't want to be duped and if you don't want to be a part of that, then it's important for you to at least try to ask questions and vet the information. Hey, May's Painting. Hey, TCA.
That the terrorists had, hidden. Was it real? Was it not? Most historians think it wasn't. I mean, this is like not unusual, in the process of creating a closed society. So if laws have made it legal to assassinate American citizens and legal to propagandize them, why should it be crazy or weird to think that that might be for a reason, right? All right. I saw the movie Zero Dark 30. Thank you very much. And I have worked on 2 presidential campaigns, so I recognize political talking points. And I wrote a piece saying, this reads like the Pentagon signed off on the script. Because there were like chunks of political talking points identifiable to anyone who's worked in Washington, right? And you don't come up with those if you're a writer writing a screenplay. And everyone was very upset. It was very controversial and scandalous. But in fact, belatedly, a news story came out saying that in fact the Pentagon had, I think, subsidized some of it, but had certainly consulted directly on the script. And I see more and more TV shows about the CIA and more TV shows about spies and gigantic blockbusters in which surveillance is normalized and gigantic blockbusters in which people are tortured to get them to talk in a way that might exonerate people who actually tortured people to get them to talk in Guantanamo. And there's all this money being pumped into these unaccountable, terrorism fighting things. And now there's no law preventing that money from going through front organizations right into popular culture. So that's of interest to me. And so another thing I want to say, and there's so many people waiting to ask a question, but I just need to say this, is I'm skeptical of certain news events that seem more theatrical than the norm. Or I want to ask questions about them. Because I was in CNN once recently.
Okay, so if you listen to what she just said, she said she's skeptical of news stories that seem more, theatrical, right? I mean, with the Chris Watts case, with the Summer Wells case, with the Gabby Petito case especially, tell me that those 3 cases have not been theatrical. We had, with the Chris Watts case, so much documentation, so much footage on the body cam to where it was literally like, I mean, if you felt like you were watching a movie, it's probably because you are. Like, it, you know, so I think that's important in what she just said, is to be skeptical of these ones that get so much mainstream media attention that I talk about all the time. Why is it that only certain ones, when there's so many missing children, women, people, murders that happen all the time, why is it that only certain ones, and I know I sound like a broken record, but it's important, why is it that only certain ones get so much mainstream media attention? And why is it so much of it, where every news outlet is covering it? And I don't know how many times, I probably a couple times a week, I have this app called Citizen app on my phone. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. I'm going to try not to get like off track here, but it's kind of important to what I'm saying. It's called Citizen app, and it notifies you in your area and your cities of like any crime that takes place. So like a robbery, if anybody's flashing someone, right? Or a house being broken into, it just notifies you to let you know of the crime in your area, to just, you know, for safety reasons or whatever. But it also, they started sending notifications out and notifying people of when there's like an Amber Alert, or if there's just a teenager that ran away, but they don't know, she ended up just running away or whatever, but like, or a child that the parent lost sight of a child and they've been missing. Like, they don't do what they did for the Watts case with all these children that go missing, or these mothers that go missing, right? They just send out notifications or Amber Alerts. They don't have every single news outlet source there every single time a child disappears. You know how many times children have gotten out of the sight or got out of the sight of their parents, and then they end up finding them like an hour later? Like, if they had every news source doing that, that would be insane, right? But of course, you know, Shanann and the girls go missing, and they're only missing for like a couple hours, and every news source is there. Chris is on the porch, right? But that's one of those tactics, and I'm not going to get too, I'll really get off track there, but that's one of the tactics that they use, that interview on the porch with Chris Watts, to really grab the attention of a lot of people and quickly. And that's how they get that widespread media attention. So that whole, like, oh, I want Shanann and the girls to come home, no, that was done on purpose. And it was a great, again, a great way, very clever way to really grasp the attention of the public, and very, very quickly, and a lot of people. So my point is they don't, you know, Summer Wells goes missing for a couple hours. She's all over the news. Shanann and the girls go missing. They're all over the news, and it's just nonstop, and it's just so theatrical, right? Like Naomi said in this video, she's skeptical of those theatrical ones. And like the Gabby Petito case, people could not like get away from their televisions. Like, they're surrounding their televisions, like waiting for the FBI and for John Walsh and the what's his name, Dog the Bounty Hunter, to find these two people, right? They have the whole entire FBI looking out for this one guy who might not even committed murder. They didn't even have her body yet, but the entire FBI is out looking for this one guy. That seems very movie and theatrical like to me. And if it seems that way, like I said, it's probably because it is. And I know that might seem crazy, and it's like, okay, Megan, like, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. Like, they're not just going to fabricate this entire... Yes, they will. They can. And they've done it for many, many years. And they've done bigger events. Like, the Chris Watts case and these true crime events are nothing compared to other events, like, you know, the school shootings and Las Vegas and 9/11. Okay, so if they can perpetrate something all the way up to 9/11, you're damn sure that they can do something like the Chris Watts case and fabricate a homicide case. And although it does seem like a ton of information that they released, they really didn't release that much information. They cherry picked everything that they wanted to show us. And it would not be difficult to write up that whole 1,980 page discovery, right? If you look at other like like homicide cases or whatever, like they're like, you're talking like 20,000 pages, and we got 1,980 pages. I mean, that's nothing. And they're like, oh, well, that's all redacted information. No, it's just cherry picked, because they don't have to show us a 20,000 page discovery of an actual, if it was a real actual homicide case, that's probably where it would be, somewhere around there. It'd be way more, depending on what it is, way more than 2,000 pages. But they don't have to show us the entire, because they could release it. They could redact it like they're supposed to. Why would they redact all those other pages? If they're trying to be transparent, and if it was in the public interest to show us this information, then why would they redact so much? Because they don't have to go through all that trouble in order to convince the majority of people that this homicide case actually happened.
And they were reporting a story about a water skier who had been decapitated on a lake between Mexico and the United States, and it had something to do with a terrorism threat. Right? And I was like, decapitated water skier. Sometimes you hear these things and it's like so novelistic. You're like, real life doesn't work that way. Like, these are so novelistic. Someone's coming up with it to make it stick in the popular imagination. Or it just makes you think, well, I'd like to document that. I'm a reporter. What's the source? And it kept being just this one guy, Judge Arpajo in Texas. I may be mispronouncing his name. He's a very, yes. Yeah, he was the source, he was the source, he was the source. And I have this wonderful Facebook community all over the world. And I went on Facebook and I'm like, Mexican Facebook community, is there any reporting about a beheaded water skier in this lake, in this place in Mexico? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? There's nothing like that. Doesn't exist. So I turned to the CNN producer and said, do you have a second source for this story? And it was all over the news, all over the news, all over the news. And they're like, and they checked and it's like, nope, just this guy, Judge, whatever. And I'm like, well, can you find?
Okay, so I want to make another point. She's trying to go in and vet this information and vet this source, and she can't seem to find the source to this story about this guy being decapitated, right? But yet it's all over the news. Because when you have 6 major news sources, and they're all owned and run by the same corporations, the same major people, it's not difficult to have all those news sources be on your side. That's the major reason why these psyops and these events are so successful, is because of mainstream media. Because they can get that news story out, if fake or not, they can get it out to as many people as possible, and the majority of people just believe it without ever trying to vet the information. That's the problem with society today, is people just believe everything that they're told, and it's mind-boggling to me. That nobody, and I know it's cliche, but nobody, the majority of people don't think for themselves. They just oh my God, this guy was decapitated. But even though it doesn't seem like it, like she's saying, it seems like it's plausible, people will just believe it without ever trying to vet it. Just like how Christopher Watts, I don't know why I said Christopher, but how Chris Watts was somehow able to get Bella and Cece in 8-inch holes, 8.5-inch holes, right? And even the autopsy tells us, if you want to believe the autopsy, it's hard to believe anything. So, but if you have toddlers, you could probably, see that it's probably not likely that they fit into those with just a scratch on their hip into those holes. But the autopsy does tell us that Cece, who was the smaller child, was actually 11.5 inches at her widest point. So you're talking about fitting 11.5 inches of something that's you have limbs, hey, Jody. So you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And people will question, some people will question it. They'll be like, how could it? But then it'll just go past them. And all they think of is oh my God, this is tragic. This is terrible. These children are dead. This mother's dead. And all logic goes out the window. So even for a second, if they're like, oh, that seems kind of crazy. How could they do? But it's gone within an instant, because of how tragic these events are. And that's why they make them so tragic, so that people don't think logically. Because like I said, when people are emotional, all logic goes out the window.
Find a second source, and they were blushing and embarrassed, and they looked and they confessed that they didn't have a second source, which if you know what journalism is, you're supposed to confirm it with two sources. So ever since that experience, CNN is running with this. No one's verifying it. Journalists aren't in a position to follow up on anything anymore because budgets are slashed and there's no investigative reporting. All this nonsense can enter the media stream for purposes that have to do with advancing agendas because no one's checking. That's all I want to say about that. Can I take more questions? So Boston, I guess my feeling about any of these things is let's investigate. We need to investigate. We need to ask better questions. We need to interview the doctors at the hospital. We need to interview the victims. We need to, get all the footage ourselves. We need to train citizens to be journalists and to have websites. And I'm busy building one as a startup where citizen journalists can document events so that we're not leaving it to the gatekeepers.
Okay, so I was going to play that again because I thought it was really important, but like I said, I will put the links in the chat, so, and you can always go back and watch this again if you need to, but I think that, like I said, what she's saying is really important, and we need to be our own journalists when it comes to these events, and especially, and like I said, it's not everything, even though I do say question everything, but I think that's important, but mainly these events that don't add up because all these events are going to have, there's a reason why they have these red flags in them, and there's a reason why they don't add up. Okay, so like if there was a true crime case or the one that was on the news where everything added up and there weren't inconsistencies, I wouldn't be sitting here trying to convince you guys that it was that there was something wrong with it, or that it was fake, or that it was orchestrated. That would make no sense. I'm only questioning the ones that don't add up. So I did want to go over that Smith Modernization Act again because it's super important and it supports my theory as to how they can do something like this. And I always get that question: how could they get away with something like this? And if it was orchestrated, what's the motives behind it? And if anybody thinks that our government doesn't lie to us, or our news sources or stations don't lie to us, then they're sorely mistaken. I mean, she just gave you an example of a guy being decapitated where she couldn't find any sources of it, but it was all over the news. For whatever reason, whatever they wanted to push with that story, they wanted to fabricate that and make that up and not have any sources to back it up. Because a lot of times these media sources aren't being questioned. They're not asking to vet the information or to provide sources. How many times have you seen Fox News provide sources, or CNN? They don't. They simply go on there, they tell their story, they tell the news story, and people just believe it. Simple as that. And they know it. So, not only can they get away with it, not only have they been doing it and getting away with it, but now they can do it legally. So, your Frederick Police Department, your DA Rourke, they can all legally lie to us. That's why they don't have to answer any of our questions about the Watts case and why there's so many inconsistencies and red flags. And that's also why they haven't come out and answer all those questions. Because they don't need to. Because they're done. They put the story out there. They're done doing what they need to do. Yeah, it's still very, very popular on social media. But in that first video that I showed you guys, they even said that even alternative media sources on social media can push propaganda legally. So again, I know this was a Q&A and I wanted to just bring that up because it's super important and for my theory. Hey, Rodalie. Hey, Rebecca. So that being said, if you guys do have any questions, then go for it, and I'll try to answer them with the best of my ability. Now, if there's any, but I see that most of you in the chat are the ones that are, my subscribers and my followers for a while. I don't see a lot of new faces in here, but I try not to do the Q&As because I know that if there's any new people or they don't know my theory, they're going to ask questions as far as the discovery goes, do you think Nicole Kessinger was in the video footage, or what do you think really happened at Nutgate? I don't know what happened at Nutgate. Even if this story was real and this whole case was real, we would have no way of knowing that. And whatever happened at Nutgate is really irrelevant, you know? And you just, so I can't answer any of questions like that. Hey, New Fish, I can't answer any questions like that as far as like pretty much anything that goes with the official narrative or anything in the discovery, because in my opinion, that discovery is not, it's a screenwrite. It's made up. So, you know, when anybody goes and says, oh, I need to, I only give you guys, my viewers, the facts, right? But they turn around and say that that DA Rourke's a liar, that the Frederick Police Department is a liar, and they can't trust anything with the case, but then they'll say, oh, I get all my facts from the discovery. That makes no sense. Or there's so many inconsistencies with the autopsy report, but they'll go over the autopsy over and over and over again. And say, oh, I'm getting my facts on my channel from the discovery and from the autopsy itself. Well, you just got done saying that you can't believe anything that the Frederick Police Department or DA Rourke says because of all of the red flags and inconsistencies. So how can you say that all your information from the discovery is factual when you're straight up calling the Frederick Police Department liars? So if you think that they can fabricate one video, or if you think that, like, there's a lot of channel creators that I've seen, and I've said it from not day one, obviously, because it took me quite some time to figure it out, but that video of Shanann coming home is not of that day, and that Nate footage is also staged. And I've been seeing over the past few months a lot of creators saying that, oh, the Frederick Police Department and DA Rourke staged and altered the Nate video, that they altered the video of Shanann coming home, that it's fabricated, but they still believe in the official narrative. Why? If they can fabricate and lie about one thing or a few things in the case, what makes you think that they can't lie about the entire thing? No, that would be way too crazy, right? That would be way too conspiratorial. They wouldn't go out of the way to like fake the whole thing, right? Even though there's no proof that anybody died, there's no evidence. That house wasn't taped off. Evidence destroyed. Nothing was done by the books. Nothing was done how it's supposed to be with the actual justice system in that case. They're like, oh no, yeah, that video is definitely, they're liars, or DA Rourke's a liar, Frederick Police Department, I don't trust anything they say, and this video is fabricated, and this one is not, or this one was edited, and we just can't believe it. But the whole case can't be fabricated, because that would be just ridiculous, right? Crazy Megan, the conspiracy theorist. Like, she has no idea what she's talking about. And again, I'm not just saying, hey, it's fake, hey, it's orchestrated. I've spent just as much time as anybody else, if not more, digging into this case. I mean, that I don't know how many hours I spent reading that discovery and delving and doing research. I have done my due diligence on this case. So I don't want people to think that I just am just saying, oh, I just noticed a couple red flags and that's it. And so that's how I came to my conclusion. That's not the case at all. I have spent hours and hours and hours, and I think that you guys know that have been, you know, my supporters for a while. But I want to make it, you know, clear to anybody that's new, that watches the replay, that I'm not just like pulling this stuff out of my ass. Like I literally, it took me quite some time to come to this conclusion. I just didn't know it right off the bat. Yeah, I don't believe it was Elizabeth, because number one, and that's the thing too, is you don't have timestamps on any of these videos. How do we know when any of these videos were recorded? And even if they have timestamps on it, with all the technology these days, it'd be very, very easy to just throw a timestamp on it and put Vivint on it and say this is when it was from. But they don't even bother to do that because they know that people will just believe it. Or they might actually notice like a discrepancy in the timestamp if you look close enough. So why even bother to put that on there? They wouldn't have to do that because they know that the majority of people will just believe it. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. This is a video of Shanann. This is her last, the time we saw her alive. And you know, that really pulls at heartstrings. That's another one of those videos where it's like, and people get very emotional and they're like, oh, if I wish I could have just stopped her from going in the door and she'd still be alive today. You know, that's the whole part of the psychological operation part of it. Like the psychological aspect of it. Okay. Yeah, it will, Rodalie, for sure. And people are going to discuss it for a long, long time. But fortunately for me, I'm not going to have to rack my brain anymore. I'm not coming up with theory after theory after theory going, what happened with this case? I know what happened. I don't have all the answers as far as like where they are. Where's Shanann? Where's Nicole Kessinger? Where are the girls? Where's Chris? I don't know. And to me, that's not relevant. And I brought this up in the last live stream. But that's not relevant. What's important is exposing the deception and the cases for what they really are, so that you guys and other people don't fall for it anymore. So you guys aren't duped. So, and especially the ones that get really emotional about these cases. There's people where it actually affects their personal lives, which is very, very sad. And that's not their fault. They're just kind, empathetic people, right? But that's why they make these cases so tragic. The more tragic, the more easy it's going to be to sway the opinions of people. And that's when people aren't going to ask as many questions either. All they're going to think of is how tragic it is. And it doesn't matter about all the red flags or the stuff that doesn't add up. It's tragic. And people, when you're emotional, and I brought this up before, when you're emotional, you're going to miss a lot of evidence or a lot of facts that you wouldn't normally if you weren't so invested as far as in the case, like emotionally. So like if, for instance, like so many people, they just are determined that Nicole Kessinger is guilty. And it doesn't matter how many facts I throw at people like that are just have already convinced themselves that for whatever reason, Nicole Kessinger is guilty of murder or helping an accomplice murder, even though there's no evidence to back that up. Like, again, I don't like Nicole Kessinger just as much as anybody else, but I don't like her for other reasons. Not because I believe that she's the cold-blooded killer of children and a mother. It's because I believe that she was fully complicit in lying to millions of people and being a part of something and duping many, many people to push an agenda or multiple agendas. So that's why I don't like Nicole Kessinger, if that is even her name, right? So, but if people are so convinced that Nicole Kessinger is guilty, they're not going to want to hear my theory. They're not going to care. They're like, what are you talking about? You think that she's innocent? You don't think that? No, I don't. And I have many reasons and a lot of information to support why I don't think that Nicole Kessinger is a murderer. Yeah, exactly, Elizabeth. And usually you have to have like the laws might be different in other states, but you have to normally have a legitimate reason as to why you're going to call in a welfare check. Like, it's not just like a couple hour, like, like if you told, and anytime if you told a police officer and you called and I said, hey, my friend's pregnant, we just got back from a trip, and she was super tired, she's kind of upset about her husband, that officer is more than likely going to tell me, well, call us back in a few hours if she still doesn't answer her phone. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's going to jump on that. I don't care if you live in a small town in Frederick and they're bored. Like, that's just a waste of, like, resources and money to show up to a house and, and she just happens to be sleeping because she's tired and she just got home from a trip and she's a little upset about her husband. It's just not real life. And that's so much, there's so many instances that I could bring up about how nothing is real life in that Watts case. Yeah, except you do all the time, Mark. I'm still trying to convince Mark. He's like, I'm not fully convinced, but I'm gonna get through to you, Mark. And I'm glad to hear that, TCA. I really, really am. Like, just you saying that, and I don't hear that from a lot of people, like what you're saying as far as, me being able to show you and that why certain things with these cases don't add up and why certain ones get so much mainstream media attention. But it does give me a lot of motivation. So thank you. I appreciate every single time you say that, because I do get discouraged a lot with this case, especially, when I just put so much time and effort in it and I am passionate about it. So when you say stuff like that, it really does give me motivation. So I appreciate that, TCA. Hey, Autumn. Oh yeah, don't get me started on the shoes, please. That's like for a whole other stream. I could talk about the shoes for just one stream in general. And, and just because, they coin like, and I try not to go too much into like the Shanann thing, like being a part of it, or Nicole Atkinson, because there, you have the victim and then you have the hero. And anytime you go after the hero or the victim's families, people don't like it. They get so protective and so just infuriated that you would even, how dare you accuse anything or Nicole Atkinson of lying or anything, or about anything in her statements. Well, as a detective, it doesn't matter if you're the one, like, if anything, Nicole Kessinger too, but Nicole Atkinson, anybody that finds the body or calls makes a 911 call, they're going to be their first suspects, like besides the significant other, right? Because they're the ones that were there. They found the body. So police are always going to look into them. And so Nicole Atkinson should have been investigated. Not just interviewed here and there, not just, no, she should have been given a polygraph or whatever. And especially since stuff in her statement, they don't add up. They just don't. And it doesn't matter if you're coined a hero or not. Investigation is an investigation, and you have to look into everybody. Regardless if you're an investigator or a detective, or if you're in the true crime community. Just because you're coined, again, a hero, it doesn't make you a hero. It doesn't. And if the stuff that you're saying in your interviews doesn't add up, or if your GPS doesn't add up or whatever on your iPhone, then people need to ask questions, regardless if you're here or not. Regardless if the family members are saying that they're victims, and they're like, no, they need to be questioned for their motives and for their actions that they've been pulling and all the shit they've been pulling on the internet and YouTube and social media, and what their motives are. But no, they're off limits. You can't go there because they're victims. Well, they don't get a free pass for the behavior on my part. I'm sorry. Question too. She did, Mark? That's interesting. Great question, Purple. Oh, and TC, I need to remember to email you, because I was in Alex Erickson's live stream yesterday, and she would like me to come on her channel and talk about my theory. And she mentioned you coming on at some point in the stream if I decide to do it, and kind of talk about, how I kind of changed your perspective on everything from you just listening to my channel. So if that's something you're interested in, Allison, I would love for you to come on. Hey, Robbie, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Hey, doing life my way. And so maybe I'll stop calling these Q&As, because I always end up just going on rants anyways. But everything that I bring up and I talk about is, in my opinion, I think is very important as far as the case goes. I mean, it's a very complex case. It is. And there was a lot of information released in it, even though I say there's not a lot of information, if that makes sense. But although it does seem like a lot of information, it's really not. Again, it was all cherry picked. But it still is very complex, and there's a lot of, rabbit holes and stuff to go down, for sure. The AHS commercial is how you found my channel? Well, that's good, because I don't think I can't even find my own channel half the time. Like, I did like a little test. I put Megan J, and then I also put Think for Yourself. I put in the exact title of one of my videos, and it did not come up on the list with all those keywords. So I think that YouTube just really does not want people to find me, unfortunately. And the AHS thing is just another part of, like, a whole nother part of my theory, where it's just, it just supports my theory even more. There's just no way that there can be so many. And I was thinking about doing a live stream again. I went over it took 2 live streams to go over all the AHS connections and all the true crime of other, like, other little Easter eggs that I found in the actual discovery itself. It took 2 live streams to do that. And I think I might go over those again, because they're very, very telling. And it's hard to deny, even if you don't believe, you don't know about predictive programming or whatever. Like, it's impossible for the connection with AHS coming on Nate's television and then going and watching the show and finding that the majority of the characters in that show are actually in the Watts case itself, the names. So if somehow or another Chris Watts would have to have found this job just, by coincidence, and have all these people in the American Horror Story have the same names, all his coworkers. How could that be logically possible? And not only that, but have the American Horror Story pretty much, mirror the entire Watts case narrative. I mean, the oil and everything. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then once and when you are able to see these cases for what they really are, they are so easy to spot, especially with the symbolism that they throw in there. They're getting very, very crazy with the symbolism, and it's laughable at times. It really is. And I want to do a live stream again, going over all the red flags that you guys need to look out for, so you can spot them, because that's how I was able to spot that the Watts case was orchestrated, simply because of all of the other red flags that I've learned from other people and other conspiracy theorists and experts on these events. But more so, like with your terrorist attacks, your mass shootings, and your school shootings. But it still boils down to it. They still use the same characteristics, or the same, like, I don't know what I'm looking for, like itinerary. They still use the same things in all of them. Now, again, like I said, they're going to cater to that. They're going to be different depending on that specific event. All the events are going to be different. Obviously, a homicide case is much different from a terrorist attack or a school shooting or a Capitol riot, whatever. But it's still going to have, like, your main red flags, like the gains widespread media attention, things don't add up, very theatrical, right? So it's very, very important that you guys remember those red flags and those characteristics to look out for, so that you can potentially spot these in the future, because they're not going to slow down. They're going to keep happening. Like not the Wells case, but the Gabby Petito case was the last one. It's only a matter of time. There's going to be another one that pops into this true crime that's going to gain that widespread media attention. Nothing's going to add up. You're going to have all this crazy, you're going to have all this documentation. You might not have a discovery every time like the Watts case, but maybe the Watts case was a little bit bigger than the Wells case. And maybe the Wells case wasn't as big as the Gabby Petito case. But either way, they're all going to, like, grab the attention for different reasons from people. Oh, TCA, Doing Life My Way. TCA is Allison. Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that, Doing Life My Way. I hope you feel better. Oh yeah, Callie, there's connections in the very, very first episode. I was blown away. I'm still blown away by it, actually. I've never seen, like, there was a lot of predictive programming in 9/11, but 9/11 was much, much bigger than the Watts case, like way bigger than the Watts case, right? And the differences there is, like, 9/11 people actually died. So people can actually die. They can actually be victims in these cases. But it just depends on the event. Sometimes they don't need to have real victims in order to, it's a lot easier to not have real victims, trust me. Like, you're not going to have all the family members that are, like, trying to figure out why their loved ones are no longer there, like the wives of the firemen in 9/11, making a big deal going after NIST, going after the government. Why are our husbands no longer on this earth? Why is stuff not making sense with your official narrative report? That's what they want to try to avoid. And that's why we don't get that kind of behavior from what we should see from the Ruseks and the Watts. Why aren't they if all of us in the true crime community and other people, if we can see that there's many, many red flags in this case and shit doesn't add up, why is it that the Ruseks and the Watts are so darn convinced that that law enforcement did such a fantastic job? Why are they trying so hard to convince us that there's no conspiracy? Right? Why are they not at Rourke's door demanding to know why Shanann and the girls are allegedly no longer on this earth? They're not doing that. They're not showing me what I should see from normal families who are mourning the deaths of their family. They're too busy causing division on social media, on YouTube, getting people divided, getting people fighting, pro-Rusek, pro-Watts, like causing chaos, causing confusion. Every time they show their faces on social media, all it does is get people talking about the case again when they just got done saying that they don't want anybody talking about the case anymore. Hey, Ashes to Ashes. Megan, what about the possibility that there was a CPS case on Shanann Watts? I'm not challenging you at all. I just wanted to ask. I mean, there could be a possibility, but that goes into like the whole, the issue that I have with it, like going with not the official narrative, and I know that there's been a lot of talk about Shanann being a bad mother, but that's going to happen when it comes to like any cases that are in any people or victims that are in the limelight, or these, well-known public cases. People are going to scrutinize you even if you're a victim. But, and I think that has a lot to do with also the psychological aspect of it. When you have so much footage, people are going to, and when you don't have the answers that we're looking for, people naturally as humans, they're going to try to find those answers on their own. When you can't get the answers from the source that you need. So we're going to rack our brains. We're going to dive into this case. We're going to pick Shanann apart. We're going to pick Nicole Kessinger apart. And we're going to try to find why stuff doesn't add up in this case, right? And I know that kind of really doesn't answer your question, but it's difficult because, like I said, with my theory, to me, everything, that whole discovery and this whole narrative is a script. It was written to fool millions of people. So like when it comes down to like kind of asking questions like that, it's difficult because even if the narrative told us, or we found out that Shanann did have a CPS case, it wouldn't change my aspect or my theory on the case. I hope that kind of helps. I know it probably doesn't. Hey, Katie. But, it's very, very important for that Smith-Mundt Act, you guys, because it supports my theory. It really does, because and I get so many times, well, how can they do this? Because they can, and they have been, like, and I think people need to just really, if they can, and the only way, I can't stress this enough. The only way you're going to be able to, or anyone's going to be able to see these cases for what they really are, you're going to have to push your emotions aside. You will not be able to grasp what I'm saying when you are emotionally invested or impacted by these victims and by the story. It will be impossible. Because you're going to have tunnel vision. You're not going to be able to see like the whole perspective and what I'm saying. You're not going to be able to look outside the box and think critically when you're so emotionally invested in these cases. And I think that's why a lot of these channel creators in true crime have a difficult time in seeing it as well, because they are affected. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, and again, I was affected right after the beginning. I was like, this is horrible. How could this guy murder his family, his pregnant wife and his two innocent little babies, and throw them in oil tanks? I was like, that's terrible. Now, was I crying over it? And was I not getting sleep at night? No. but I'm just not like affected that way. And maybe it's because I take that back. Like, I can watch some of these documentaries on like on Discovery ID and whatnot, like the small cases that nobody knows about, that doesn't get the mainstream media attention, and I'll get choked up. I do. Like, I'll get tears in my eyes. But for specific reasons, I didn't get that feeling when I heard about the case. Like, I was like, oh, that's terrible. That really is. That's sad. Like, when I saw the Dr. Phil and Chris Watts on the porch, I was like, that's a horrible story. It really is. But I didn't get that, like, empathy. I didn't get that sadness. And I think there was a reason for that. Because I just didn't get that feeling. If that makes sense. And yes, round and round, I agree. Yeah, and that's weird too, Mark. That whole, when I learned that someone else in that family was missing, and then now this, and the Summer Wells thing, I found that very odd. Well, TCA, I wouldn't feel bad about that. It's a good thing I don't have like 150 people, because then we're going to make you feel really bad that you didn't say hello to everyone. I'm just kidding. Hey, Gail. Hopefully I said your name right. I'm like, I sent, Cecile made a comment, and I hope I'm saying her name right, on my kitty video that I posted. And I was like, please tell me. I was like, P.S., please tell me if I'm saying your name right. If I ever say anyone's name wrong in the chat, or let me know in the chat when I do, and correct me, please, because the last thing I want to do is like mispronounce everyone's names. Like, that's like, I just hate that. So please don't be afraid to correct me. And luckily for Mark, his name is easy, and as I know, he would have corrected me right off the bat. On Reddit, there are toys with Watts' kids' names before this case. 3 exact names. Weird. I haven't seen that. I haven't been on Reddit in so long, though. But yeah, doing life my way. Emotion is one of the main motives, as I mention all the time, for why they do these. And they do it to sway the emotions of people. And fear being another one. And I mention this all the time. Like, so they want people to think that, and there's so many other motives behind it. These are just a couple to name it. So like the emotion, but another one is fear, especially with the mass shootings and the school shootings, the terrorist attacks. That's to push fear onto the public. And that's another, and even though the Watts case is smaller, they want, and this is the reason why, in my opinion, that everybody that was involved in this case, all of, Nicole Atkinson, the Ruseks, the Watts, the co-workers, Shanann's friends, everyone that was interviewed, do you guys remember how nobody had anything bad to say about Chris Watts? Like, I don't care how nice of a person this is. You want me to believe that nobody has anything negative to say about this guy. Oh, he was a loving husband. He was a great father. He was always to work on time. Greatest employee of the month. All, like, nobody had anything bad to say about the guy. But then all of a sudden, when it came out that he was guilty, they were like, oh yeah, we knew right when he backed his truck into the driveway that he was guilty. Well, that's funny, because all of you guys in your interview said that you didn't think anything bad about this guy. I mean, the Ruseks, like, oh, we love him as a son. But no, the Ruseks were like, yeah, we knew, right? When he backed the truck into the driveway, he was guilty. Oh, that's funny. Because I thought you loved him like a son. And all the guy did was back his truck into the driveway. Maybe he was getting bold because Shanann never let him pull his truck into the driveway. Maybe he was like, she's out of town or so, whatever. I don't know. Like, forget her. I want to pull my truck into the driveway. I'm a grown-ass man. Like, no. They were so quick to just say, yeah, he's guilty. And only 5 days after, Nicole Atkinson is already pushing on petition.org to charge Chris with the murder of, or get a law passed for the murder of Nico. That's another thing you guys need to look out for. When they're passing laws only 5 days after this guy or the event happens, right? Like, he wasn't even charged fully. He confessed to Shanann. He wasn't charged. He wasn't in a court of law. He wasn't charged in a court of law for any of this yet. 5 days after, Nicole Atkinson and her son, and however many other people, are starting a petition.org to get Chris Watts charged with another murder for Nico. Why wouldn't they be mourning the deaths of Shanann and the girls and Nico instead of already trying 5 days after he confesses to push this law? That's something that you guys need to look out for, just like with the school shootings. Like, the day of or just the day after, these parents are supposed to be mourning the deaths of their children, but they're saying, we want to take your rights away, we want to take your guns away, instead of mourning the deaths of their children. That's something you guys need to look out for, because that's another motive. Fear, emotion, laws being passed, rights being taken away. Distraction, distraction, distraction. Look over here at the Gabby Petito case and the Brian Laundrie case, and not over here at what's really going on, or what's really going on with this virus, and that how people are losing their jobs over the past couple of years. Or people are committing suicide because they can't, or children are, because they can't go and see their friends because they're locked up in their house on quarantine. Or companies, like I said, that are losing their businesses. But all the big corporations are going strong. But I can drive around my city and I see so many like local businesses that are all shut down because they had to shut down their businesses, and they can't afford now to get their businesses up and running again. So don't look over here at everybody else that's struggling in the world. Let's all focus on Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. Two people. Yet everybody's glued to their televisions and to their computer screens and to their phones about if whether or not Dog the Bounty Hunter or John Walsh or the entire FBI is going to find Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. It's ridiculous. But it's a show. It's theatrical. Like Naomi Watts, Naomi Wolf mentioned, be skeptical of anything if it seems theatrical. If it seems like a movie, it probably is. And I know that's hard to grasp. But things don't have to be as complicated as some people might make it. My theory might sound complicated, but it's really not. It's very simple, in my opinion. But that being said, I think I'm going to end it, you guys. And I know I probably didn't answer very many questions, and I apologize for that. Hey, Stephanie, I have a question for you while you're here. I saw that you made a couple comments on my last live stream. Did you happen, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but did you happen to delete them by chance? I just want to kind of do a little test, because I've been noticing that people are making comments and a lot of them are getting deleted. And I don't usually see when people or my viewers like post comments on my channel, I don't see them getting deleted very often, but for some reason I'm seeing them getting deleted more and more. So I'm just curious to know if you actually just changed your mind and deleted your comments. And there was somebody else too that I wanted to ask, but I don't think they're here. I just wanted to just see if you actually deleted them, or if there's something else going on with YouTube deleting my comments again. Yeah, all the world's a stage, definitely. Apple of his eyes. Or eye, I should say. Why do they say that, though? That's a good question. Why do they say apple of his eye? Or, like, I have my eye on you. Like, would it be my eyes? Or apple of his eyes? I don't know. I think about stuff like that sometimes. Oh, no, it posted because I saw your comment didn't post. I mean, they were there, but they said that they were deleted, or they're no longer, it was removed. I was just curious, Steph, so. But no, so I know that I didn't answer very many questions again. I'll maybe refrain from calling it a Q&A, because I know I'm not the best with that. And I know a lot of times people don't have questions like right off the bat, but I'm going to continue. I'll continue to do Watts. It's something that I'm very, very knowledgeable in. So I'm very comfortable talking about it. But I refuse to talk about Summer Wells anymore. That case is just such a circus. I'm so glad that I didn't. I mean, I think I pointed out the symbolism and some other inconsistencies and red flags with that case, and compared it to the Watts case to show you guys. But I'll still talk about these other cases, and I'll still talk about Watts. Like, I'm not going to talk about, again, I'm not going to keep playing the body camera footage over and over again. I'm not going to do that. Like, there's no point, especially when it comes down to my theory. There's just, when I believe that it's entirely a script. I mean, bottom line, it's a script. And even if it were real, you can't solve a case with only cherry-picked information and only part of the information. And not only that, when people are saying that they don't believe that a lot of the information is true in that discovery, I don't understand how they believe that they're going to try and solve this case. I mean, it would be impossible, even if the information was all factual and legit. So, but again, I will continue to cover Watts. I'll continue pointing out the red flags, like I said. I will continue to show you guys, and I will make it so that you guys, so these characteristics and these things to look out for in the future stick in your head, because they're very, very important to remember in order to be able to spot these other events. And it, like I said earlier, it's only time until the new Chris Watts case is going to come out, or the new Summer Wells case, or the new Gabby Petito. I don't know when, but they're going to keep happening. So I will continue to keep exposing them and showing you guys how they are similar and how they do have all the same characteristics for the most part, so that you guys will not be duped in the future anymore. That is my goal. If I can't, and it takes years sometimes to wake people up to the deception. And sometimes it doesn't take long at all. Everybody's different, but if I can't, fully wake everybody up, the least, I just want people to, honestly, as cliche as it sounds, like, think for themselves and do your own research. It's so, so very important, especially in these days, to do that. And especially with all of the fake news that's out there, it's so important. And even if it's your favorite true crime channel, like, tell them to give you receipts. Say, if you think this is what's going on, or if you're not, if you think, but if you're saying, hey, this is what's happening and this is factual, then you need to show me some evidence of that. Give me some sources. Don't just turn on your favorite true crime channel and just believe everything that they say. Because it's gonna get you nowhere, I promise. And you're just gonna continue to believe the lies. So whether it's all the way up to your government, your mainstream media, or small channel creators, please, please, please try to vet this information or ask for sources. And if you're asking questions and you're getting muted, or you're getting timed out, or you're getting banned from that channel, then you probably have your answer, and you probably shouldn't go to that channel anymore for actual or factual news sources, right? Thank you, Allison, so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And I love you too. And I will email you if you are interested in coming on Alex's channel with me. So again, like I said, please, please research, vet information, try to vet it, and think for yourselves. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I will see you guys next time.